Before we proceed with the items on the agenda, I need to remind you of the usual housekeeping messages. There are no fire alarm tests planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the chamber by the nearest door, then follow the illuminated fire exit signs and assemble in the car park at the rear of the building. Would you please ensure that your mobile phones, tablets and devices are on silent mode? Also, a gentle reminder about appropriate behaviour in the council chamber. We ask that everyone respect councillors and officers when business is being carried out. If a member of the public interrupts proceedings, I shall intervene accordingly. You have the right to film this meeting if you so wish, but I would like to know now, before we begin, whether anyone in the room plans to do this. If you intend to film the meeting or part of it, would you please indicate now? Thank you. So, as point 22 of the Access to Information Procedure Rules, I ask those that are filming the meeting, as a matter of courtesy, that your recording is visible to those attending and that the right film or recording is limited to the duration of the meeting only. Thank you. So the first item on this evening's agenda is apologies for attendance. We have received apologies from Councillors Sorensen, Rayner. Are there any more apologies, please?
Councillor Cattrall.
Oh, thank you. The next item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes. Can I please have a proposal that the minutes of the council meeting held on 6th of March 2025 be approved as a correct record? Can I have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? No? Okay. Would those members present at the 6th of March meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record, please clearly indicate those against? Any abstentions? That's fine. The next item on the agenda, the minutes of the 6th of March meeting are confirmed. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members or officers have any interests or to declare, or any items included on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. The next item is item 4, announcements. I'm pleased to announce that Wyre Council's Wyre Moving More initiative was a winner in the recent iNetwork Innovation Awards. Wyre Moving More highlights the successful collaborative multi-agency partnership work led by Wyre Council on the development of an innovative new 5-year physical activity strategy for Wyre. So well done to all involved. And I would like to also thank those who all attended and contributed to my Mayor's Ball. It was a complete success, raising £4,190. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to say on behalf of the Labour councillors that attended, we thoroughly had a very good night, great party, great music, great food. Bit disappointed that there was none of the cabinet members there. Oh, sorry, Peter, you was, but there was nobody else. But it was a good night and lots of money raised.
Thank you very much for those comments, and thank you for attending, and I hope your mobile phone's still intact. So the next item, we have a public question has been submitted by Barbara Neal. This has been attached to your agenda packs at pages 17 and 18. We have Dr. Barbara Neal in attendance. Would you please come to the lectern and read out your question? You have 5 minutes to do so.
Go, Barbara.
Are we switched on? Yes. So, Wyre Borough Council has a duty to investigate complaints about issues that could be a statutory nuisance, a nuisance covered by the Environmental Protection Act 1990. If they agree a statutory nuisance is happening, has happened or will happen, councils must serve an abatement notice. Issues that may cause a statutory nuisance include smells from industry, trade or business premises. For the issue to count as statutory nuisance, it must do one of the following: unreasonably and substantially interfere with the use or enjoyment of a home or other premises, injure or be likely to injure. Since Jameson Road landfill was reopened in late 2023, there have been over 4,000, although I think it's more now, complaints to the Environment Agency, and over 1,500 complaints to Wyre Borough Council about the unreasonable and unacceptable odour which has been impacting on the health and day-to-day activities of local residents. I would like to ask Councillor Vincent what actions have been taken to investigate this odour issue, including how many meetings and with whom has Wyre Borough Council attended, and if not, why not? Has Wyre Borough Council taken legal advice about the issue of an abatement notice? If so, with whom, and what is that advice? Given the situation now has lasted longer than 12 months, what is the delay?
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, could you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll first address what an abatement notice is.
Could you turn the volume up a bit, please? I can't hear you.
Because your microphone's on.
You need to get nearer to the microphone then.
Don't speak over me. And
How do you do that then?
It's because your microphone is on and is permanently on. If you step away from it a little bit, it should be easier to hear me. I shall first address what an abatement notice is and the evidence we need to serve one for it to be upheld. As Dr Neil states in the introduction to her question, for there to be a statutory nuisance, we must prove with evidence that there is a nuisance that has unreasonably and substantially interfered with the use or enjoyment of a home or other premises. The Council has received a great number of complaints about the smell, and there is no doubt in any of our minds that it has interfered with our residents' enjoyment of their homes. However, if we are to take action under Part 3 of the Environmental Protection Act 1999 and prove that there is a statutory nuisance that must be abated, we must do so with evidence that proves not just the presence of a nuisance, but the extent of the impact it has had on residents' enjoyment of their property. Many of the complaints we have received have been from people visiting Fleetwood or passing through. While these complaints are legitimate and may help the EA build a general evidence base, they do not assist us in proving a statutory nuisance, as they are not complaints about the complainant's ability to enjoy their homes or use of other buildings. When we have received complaints from households, we have routinely responded by email or letter to inform the complainants that they need to provide us with evidence that we need and ask them to ask their household to complete a diary. I fully understand that people think that we are the council and so this should be our job, but it is vital that people understand that this is not the case. A council employee could not complete a diary sheet unless they lived or worked in an affected area. These need to be completed by those who own or occupy the property. They need to be completed daily or as close to daily as possible. They must record the smell but also how it has impacted the complainant. Had it been in the property that day or only when they used the garden? How bad has it been compared to other days?
This man is...
Sorry.
It's a joke.
When there is a spike in general complaints, our environmental health team can then visit the homes completing and returning diaries in the area where the smell is worse and confirm it. Then we will have the evidence we need to potentially serve an abatement notice. I fully accept that people will think that the complaints they have made should be enough. Maybe they should be. And they are enough for the EA to take action. But they as yet have not used their powers to launch a general investigation into trans waste. We still want people to complain as they have been doing, but we also need people across the affected area to complete diaries. Where the smell is bad changes depending on wind direction, and so we need people from all parts of Fleetwood and the worst affected parts of Cleveland and Thornton to complete the diary sheets and to do so every day, whether it is particularly bad that day or not. We need to be able to prove a baseline level and then a spike. We need people to continue to complete the diaries even after the notice has been served, so that we have evidence as to whether the nuisance has been abated or not. Trans waste may claim it has been, and without these diary sheets we may struggle to prove that to be untrue. I hope that I have made clear that it is not a council policy to request these, it is what the court will require. If you or anyone you know has been affected in their home, then you should urge them to complete diary sheets. To date, of the 1,049 households who have been sent a diary to complete, only 19 have returned them, and of those 19, only one have returned more than one. I hope that people now understand how important it is to complete and return a diary sheet. Even when we have served an abatement notice, trans waste will have the right to appeal within 21 days. While an appeal is ongoing, they have the right to continue tipping unless the EA intervene, but we have reached the point where we must take some action, and this is the best option we have in the short term, however unsatisfactory it may be. When any appeal has been exhausted by trans waste, we would then need to seek the permission of the Secretary of State to enforce the notice. An abatement notice will not be a quick solution. We are likely to have to fight trans waste through court even after it has been served, but we are willing and happy to serve one once we have the diary evidence. So to answer Dr. Neil's question directly, to investigate the odour as a statutory nuisance, we have sent hundreds of diary sheets to residents. We have had many meetings with different people from the EA, and officers and councillors have attended such meetings. We've taken advice from King's Council about the various possible avenues we can take to bring this awful situation to an end, including the service of an abatement notice. I will not be setting out Council's advice in a public meeting, as it may prejudice the action we are to take. I will, however, confirm that any possible steps or action Council has advised that we may be able to take will be taken if they have any reasonable prospect of success. We are in the process of instructing external solicitors to assist our legal team and external consultants with expertise in landfill sites. We as a council have no such experience and so have until now been reliant upon the EA for this advice. We now feel that obtaining our own independent expert evidence is in the public interest. As to the delay, there is no delay. We do not currently have the specific evidence we require to be able to serve an abatement notice. That may be unsatisfactory to those in the public gallery, but we are following the law. We do not make it. I hope that after tonight and the communications we will be releasing about this, we will receive weekly diary sheets from as many people as possible. I am aware that there are councillors from both sides who live in affected areas, and I urge them to take the lead by completing diary sheets starting tomorrow. We should all encourage anyone affected in their home to do so. Completing them is an inconvenience, but much less so than this awful smell and situation.
Thank you. Dr. Barber-Neil, you do now have the opportunity to raise a supplementary question if you wish. This must arise directly from the original question or the reply given.
Okay, so there's been a delay to action with respect to the Jameson landfill. The delay is related to a second duty of Wyre Borough Council as owner of Jameson Road landfill and landlord to Trans Waste. Wyre Borough Council have a duty to review the tenancy agreement in light of the Environment Agency enforcement actions and the adverse impacts on local residents. This delay is due to a financial concern that Suez may demand back a guarantee of £1.3 million as written in the lease. This financial risk equates to £20 approximately per resident of Fleetwood, Thornton Clevelys, Knott End, Prysor and Hambleton, all those affected. Can Councillor Vincent confirm what actions Wyre Borough Council are taking with respect to a formal review of the lease and probable breaches which could lead to an eviction of Trans Waste? And is the Council yet again going to focus purely on financial aspects of this situation rather than health and well-being concerns of local residents for the sake of £20 per resident?
Why are you laughing? It's not
Thank you very much. If you're going to ask questions that are incorrect legally, I wouldn't ask them to a lawyer. So firstly...
Well, you're not here as a lawyer, you're here as leader of Wyre Borough Council and you have a duty to answer it. So please do not be rude.
Stop speaking and let me answer the question.
I'm sorry, you're rude to me. You are the leader of Wyre Borough Council. You are not acting as a lawyer.
I was not rude to you at all.
useless.
If any member of the public, please can you allow to stop interruption to the meeting, otherwise we're not going to be able to get any questions answered. Thank
But
you.
Chair, there is a point of order. And you're not answering this question as a lawyer.
I know, but if you could let him finish the answering and then just step back
Can
from
we
the
just
microphone.
clarify though, he's answering this question as leader of Wyre Borough Council.
He's said that.
Full stop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll forget I'm a lawyer then. Okay, so...
Please do.
Firstly, Suez have not paid a guarantee. There's a misunderstanding completely of what a guarantee is here, which is why I made the point about the legal side of things. Trans Waste paid the bond. Suez guarantor Trans Waste's interest in the lease. So can I answer the question? So Suez have not paid any money. I don't care one bit about the bond, the lease, the rent, at all. I don't care about a single...
Thank you.
How dare you tell us to shut up?
We understand.
How dare you?
Listen, we understand that this is a very sensitive issue, and the only way that we're ever going to be able to hear everybody speak is if everybody just listens to each other. So if we could just be respectful when other people are answering questions. Thank you.
We do not care about the...
I think we should put a full stop there.
Can I Dr Neil, I'm trying to answer your question. And
Please do. Get to the
stop interrupting me and let me answer the question.
Oh, do not shout at me.
If we do continue, then I will move on to the next item on the agenda because we're not going to get anything.
But then I do need to say that I do not expect to be shouted at by the leader of the Wyre Borough Council. But I want an apology. I want an apology.
Dr Neil, I apologise for shouting, but can I please...
Apology accepted.
Can I please answer the question without anybody else interrupting me? Because I cannot possibly be expected to provide you with the answer that you all want and deserve while people keep interrupting. Please, can I answer uninterrupted? Please. Right.
Carry on.
You're not filming Dr Neil laughing when I ask for that courtesy, so this just needs to be put on the record for those filming it. So, as I say, Suez haven't paid a bond. Suez haven't paid a bond. They guarantee the bond and they guarantee the interest in the lease of Transwaste. When it comes to the lease itself, and we'll deal with this more fully within the motion because this is about landlord rights and not anything to do with statutory nuisance, which is what your question was about. So we have rights under the lease, but if you read the lease, those rights are clearly defined. It's a lease, not a tenancy agreement, so actually the rules on this are set out in the Law of Property Act 1925, and they have security of tenure. Clearly, with the benefit of hindsight, we would never have granted this lease to Suez when it was granted, but it was decades ago, so we can't do anything about that now. So they have a lease, and they have protections under that lease. And I don't want them to. This is not about the money for this council. This idea that it's about the money, I'm afraid it is just not true. We are a debt-free council with millions in reserve. The simple fact is, Dr Neil, if I could surrender the lease with them tomorrow, we would do so. We do not care one bit about the money. We want this to be over. We want this to be over for everybody.
What protection
right?
do we have?
But we cannot just terminate their lease. So what happened was, when the Environment Agency served them with notice, they had until the 10th of April to comply with that notice. Had they not complied with that notice, at that point they would have been in breach of the lease. At that point we can serve them with notice that gives them 3 months to rectify the breach, and at that point we can then serve them with a Section 146 of the Law of Property Act 1925 notice that says we're going to seek forfeiture of the land. Because they rectified the breach of the lease, we don't get the opportunity to serve them with a 3-month notice and even start that process. That's with the EA. It's the EA who need to find them in breach of the terms of their permit, which we can then use to serve them with that notice and start forfeiture proceedings. I do not want to keep Transwaste on that site any second, and we have to. But we are bound by the law. That is not this council's doing. We are all desperate to get rid of them, for you. It's not about the money. And
The reason they're there is because of Wyre Borough Council. Full stop.
Do we have?
Don't you point at me, mate. You created this situation, and you've just said that you're not bothered about the fact that more than 7,000 people have complained to the EA. Yes, you do. You're more bothered. No, you said it's about the Environment Agency.
Thank you.
You're trying to cop out.
Dr Neil, thank you. We've had the questions. That concludes the public questions on the statements. Thank you.
See, you get shut down yet again. Utter disgrace.
So we have no questions on notice from councillors. However, before we move on to item 7, I would like to move a motion to change the order of business in the agenda, suggesting that item 16, notice of motion, be heard next. Please may I have a seconder for this proposal? Thank you. We will now move on to a vote on this. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item, 16, notice of motion. We have received one. The motion is submitted by councillors Vincent, Barry, Kay and Rendell, which is set out in full at page 259 in your agendas. Councillor Vincent, would you please propose the motion? You have a maximum of 5 minutes to do so.
Disgusting.
Well, it's a shame people are leaving because...
This actually affects what you've been asking us for.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, first of all, before I start on this, I'd just like to praise Corinne Mason and her team. They are dealing with two massive issues at the moment, and they're doing so brilliantly in very, very difficult circumstances. So, you know, whether they're accepted or not, the public and this council owe them a debt of thanks. Madam Mayor, I speak to the Member of Parliament about the Jameson Road situation very often. We share the view that the EA want to act against trans waste and that something is being investigated quietly. But we all agree that this situation has been allowed to continue for far too long. I'll keep my counsel on my opinion on trans waste, save as to say that I believe that they have already proven that they are incapable of running the Jameson Road landfill site in a way that does not cause a public nuisance and that it should be closed. I don't intend to repeat my comments regarding the nuisance and the potential abatement notice, but I'm happy to answer any questions about this. Madam Mayor, I propose that any questions that would normally be asked of me about Jameson Road in my usual report be asked during the debate on the motion, as there's no time limit on the debate, and it appears sensible for me to try and confine this to a single issue item. As I informed Dr Neil, the Council has received comprehensive legal advice, and this has come from Matt Hutchins, KC. The advice is specialist legal advice and contains useful guidance regarding various things we might be able to do. It covers our role as landlord and as local authority, and it also gives useful practical advice. It would not be wise to set that advice out here. Far from it. It could be prejudicial to any future legal action we or the EA take against trans waste if I did. But I can say that as a council, we have very limited powers as landlord. A lease was granted years ago to a different company. That lease and the various pieces of property legislation govern the landlord and tenant relationship, and we can't simply evict them as they have security of tenure. There's a mechanism in the lease that would enable us to ultimately seek forfeiture of the lease in the event of a breach, but it's not a simple process. It's just the one that I've outlined to Dr Neil, so I won't repeat this part of what I was going to say. There's a review mechanism in the lease, and this was active as of the 1st of April 2025, and on the 1st of April 2025 we wrote to Trans Waste to inform them that we would be reviewing the lease. We are in the process of procuring consultants and instructing external solicitors to handle this on our behalf. As we are a public authority, there are legal processes we must follow, but we are progressing these instructions as quickly as we are allowed to. We're working with LCC to highlight potential breaches of the planning permission and NL Section 106 agreements, but since I wrote this, they've since confirmed that they are not currently aware of any breaches on the basis that they have been provided with the documents that they are meant to be under the permission. We will not leave any stone unturned. Some people have claimed that we're putting money before people, and it's not true. We're a debt-free council with millions in reserve. We've kept reserves for emergencies, and we consider this to be the most serious of emergencies. We don't care one bit about the rent. If we could forego the rent and write a cheque to Trans Waste to send them back to Yorkshire, we would do so immediately and without hesitation. But sadly, this is not an option. They are presumably making vast sums from the misery they are inflicting on our residents, and we do not receive money from the lease. But we would terminate that lease in a heartbeat if we had the legal power to do so. King's Council has confirmed that there is nothing available to us that is as satisfactory as the Environment Agency using its general investigatory powers. To date, they have investigated and acted over specific breaches. These relate to the inadequate capping of specific wells. Once the capping works were completed, Trans Waste were free to start tipping again. The difficulty we all face, Madam Mayor, is that the EA do not tell us what they are investigating, and that is quite right. The police do not publicise their investigations before they bring a prosecution, and nor should the EA. We are confident that the EA want this situation to end, and end permanently just like we do, but for whatever reason, they are not yet ready to bring their case. It would be a mistake for me to attack the EA. We and the people of Fleetwood and Thornton Cleveland need them. We need them to take action, and we need them to keep talking to us. We also need them to cooperate with us so that we can try and achieve the things that the barrister has advised that we might be able to. But that does not mean we should not pressurise them. In his advice, Mr Hutchins says, and I quote, although I have little hope of this after tonight, "In summary, my advice to Wyre Council is that service of an abatement notice could form part of a wider strategy of engagement between Wyre Council and local residents and campaign groups to act in concert to put pressure on the EA to take a tougher approach to the exercise of its regulatory functions. I have already explained at length what we need to do to prove the statutory nuisance, and we want to work with the public to gather the evidence that we need to prove one. That's why I'm calling on all residents and campaign groups to work with us. We are going to do everything we can to help, and we will engage better with you and keep you better updated, but there are things we cannot tell you, just like there are things that the EA cannot tell us. I understand that trusting this council will not come easily to most, but it's important that you do and work with us. Getting the resolution that the public want will not be achieved by blaming Wyre Borough Council. It will be achieved by working with us to do everything we can and working with the EA while applying pressure to them to close the site. If you do not trust me on this, trust the KC. I hope that this council will unite to send a clear message to Trans Waste and the EA. Any amendment or suggestion that this council should be doing more would be a wrecking amendment. It would demonstrate to the EA and Trans Waste that we are not united about what is needed. Since the suspension was imposed, the focus of frustration has fallen back on the council, and I believe that has left the EA off the hook, and that should not happen again. This council does not need to be compelled to do all it can. It is 100% committed to doing everything within our power, and the focus of myself, Roger, and all senior officers is on doing absolutely anything within our power to see the site closed, and closed for good. We must work together as a council and community to send a message to the EA that we need this site to be shut down by them and as soon as possible. The people of Wyre deserve better. I'm happy to propose this, Madam Mayor, and hope that all members will unite behind what is a clear and simple message.
Thank you.
Point of order at this juncture. Once again, because of the fundamental issues at both the Jensen Road site and also the land contamination, I appeal to you to suspend the rule, or I'm addressing the matter at the moment. Could I appeal to you to suspend the 10-minute rule and flexibility so that we can ask fundamental questions that we want to ask?
Thank you, Councillor. We're not on the exec report, so we have got the time to be able to hear that, but thank you for raising it. Councillor Berry, I understand you're going to second the motion.
Yeah, I'll second it, Madam Mayor. I reserve the right to speak.
Would members who wish to speak for or against the motion or to propose an amendment to it please indicate? You will have up to 5 minutes each. Okay, Councillor Kay.
Sorry, I'd like to speak. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr McPartland and Fleet School for their very successful protest with the government. Residents should not have to live with the stench and unpleasant, pungent odours that are coming from the site. They cannot open the windows, doors, put washing out, let children play in the gardens. Our economy is struggling, especially the tourism, local business, caravan parks. They are not only losing customers, but their turnover. This is not going to improve at this moment in time. Therefore, I'm calling on you, all councillors in this chamber, to work together, cross-party, and put pressure on the Environment Agency. They need to close the site permanently, having ascertained that the wells are safe and no odours can escape. I hope that working together with the council we can achieve this outcome and support our residents with the daily diary sheets that are required to move this forward. Thank you, councillors. I hope you will support this.
Thank you. Councillor Atkins.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed. I intervened briefly as the chairman of the Climate Change Subcommittee, and colleagues will know, I think, that we have tried very hard since the formation of that policy group and now the subcommittee to act in a very non-partisan way, and I'm grateful to Councillor Fale and his colleagues and others who've sought to contribute to that committee in a very constructive and helpful manner. And I want to emphasise that as far as this issue is concerned, I suspect that we all agree that it is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace, and it's something that we ought to be able to do something about, and I congratulate the leader on delineating carefully and constructively what our powers are and what advice has been taken. But I want to, through you, Madam Mayor, ask the leader to confirm that fundamentally this is an issue for the Environment Agency, and that we have limited powers because they are an advisory organisation. And I know when I was holding a ministerial position and had responsibility for some of these matters, it was MPs and the House of Commons that made the impact on issues that mattered. So surely it must be up to us to persuade our local MPs that they should be taking this unacceptable situation with the Environment Agency to date to government, to invite them to bring pressure to bear upon the EA in order that action should be taken. And I hope that the leader would agree with me that that is all our MPs within the confines of Wyre, whatever their political persuasion, because this is an issue which we are united on, ought to be united on, and ought to pursue to the fullest possible level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Robert. I will say it would be the easiest thing in the world for me to do to sit here and play party politics with this, but Mrs Beavers has worked as hard on this as you would want her to as the MP. She has done everything that I think that the residents could expect of her. She has banged the drum wherever she could bang it. Unfortunately, I don't get the impression that the government have a great deal of interest in the matter. I think that more pressure could have been put on the EA by the government, but I would say that the government deserve that criticism rather than Mrs Beavers. This is just completely unacceptable, as you say. It is wrong. It's something that needs to be discussed and thought about at a national level, because we have on the one hand a policy that the government don't want incinerators, and from a climate change perspective I understand why that is, but also we don't want landfill. So this problem is one that the government should be looking at nationally, and the answer is waste to energy. And waste to energy on Hill House could potentially solve this problem for everybody, but that's for another day.
Thank you. Councillor Rushforth.
I'll manage. This is a question that I was going to ask of your report, but you've merged it, so I'll ask it now. It states in your report that only inner waste is being allowed to go onto Jameson Tip at the moment. Sorry?
You can just answer that point quickly.
Yeah.
That was the case until the suspension was lifted yesterday. Now they're back to dumping whatever they want.
Okay. End of question.
Thank you. Councillor Belshaw.
Madam Mayor, this is just a quick one. I don't know who to contact to get hold of these diary sheets, but could we work with the town council and take a pile of them to give out when we get there?
Absolutely. With being in the pre-election period, I can't put anything out, but the chief executive should be ready to basically go live with some sort of comms campaign to make it as easy as possible. Obviously, not everybody is able to print these things off. There's a slight logistical thing there, but we're going to get as many of these out to people as we possibly can, because it's just so important. Honestly, I completely understand. I know you do, and it feels ridiculous that obviously we're saying you're going to fill these specific sheets in. This is the choice now. We either go, we could serve an abatement notice tomorrow, and Transwaste would appeal it, and they would appeal it within 21 days. We'd end up in the court with them, and they would almost certainly win the appeal, because what the sheets do is the sheets say not just when they had the smell, when they smelt it, and how bad it was, where you were in the property, inside, outside, but also the impact on you. And it's in Dr. Neil's question from the legislation. You have to have evidence of the impact. Or a lot of the complaints we receive, most of them are, there's a bad smell and it's a bad smell. We do get that, and for the EA that's enough. But for statutory nuisance, we have to prove the impact. So while these diary sheets are an inconvenience, I get that. I wouldn't want to fill one out either, and I would think, why am I filling this out? Why don't the council do their job? We can't do the job unless we've got them, because if we start giving evidence that says this is how bad it was, that's hearsay and that's inadmissible. You know, it's a legal process we have to follow. So yeah, we will get them to the town council, we'll get them wherever we can so people can collect them.
We've got a meeting at the end of the month, so
I am going to suggest that anybody with an affected ward that you work with your community, get them questionnaires filled in, get them back and get them to be, even if they fill in a few, that's what we need, absolutely, but we need everybody to be doing this within their affected wards, just as many as we can get back, because the more evidence that we can keep going back, as Councillor Vincent states, if we can do that, then we've got a case, because it isn't just one. Thank you.
I could just finish slightly. What we need to prove is this. We need a baseline. It smells. It smells nearly all the time, if not all the time. We know that. But it's a landfill site. It's going to smell. But there are times when it smells particularly bad. And we know, or that the EA think they know why that is. So if people are filling out these diary sheets for a week, 10 days, and it's unpleasant, but it's not horrific, and then it spikes, and the complaints come in, that's when our environmental health officers go out to those properties, wherever the wind blows, where it gets bad. And that's when they can then go out, assess the diary sheets, smell it for themselves, confirm it, and that's go time. That's when the abatement notice kicks in. But members need to understand that an abatement notice is not some sort of magic solution to this. Just for a bit of context, the only main similar case is about Worley's Quarry in Newcastle under Lyme. They served the abatement notice in August 2021, and it was finally settled in 2025. And they only stopped fighting the abatement notice when they liquidated the company, and they were dumping the whole time. So the abatement notice, once we can get the evidence, it is just to put pressure on the EA. That is all we can do, really, is try and work with and pressurise the EA through what we can, and we've got to keep it in the public eye. If we let it out of the public eye and we let the EA off the hook, it's going to go on longer.
Thank you. Councillor Fayle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The ball was very much in the Environment Agency's court prior to Transwaste's suspension being lifted. As landowner, though, Wyre now need to take a far greater role in protecting residents from this ongoing scandal. On that note, I'm pleased to hear that the lease is being reviewed. 14 months of this has brought us to the point that the only people who seemingly have faith in Transwaste are Transwaste themselves. They've had their chance to put things right, only for the problems to continue. It's a moot point whether other companies could have dealt with the nauseous gases any better, possibly not. The smells may dissipate for a while, but before you know it, the smell will be back again. And there's only so many chances Transwaste or any other company should be given to properly manage this. It's not being properly managed so far, so it's now time that the Environment Agency, Wyre and LCC get together to do everything in their powers to get the landfill shut down as soon as is possible within the legal framework. Yeah. With that in mind, the motion before us would benefit from a request for additional action in order to end this nightmare for residents. I propose the following amendment. This council calls on the Environment Agency, Wyre Council, LCC and all enforcing authorities to take all necessary measures as a matter of urgency to ensure that the Jameson Road landfill site is capped off and ensure the site ceases to receive hazardous waste to prevent any further smells, and that the site is then permanently closed.
Thank you. Rebecca Huddleston, would you please advise on whether or not the amendment is valid?
Yes, the amendment's valid.
Is there a seconder for that amendment, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I would just like to state I consider the amendment to be totally pointless, given that we have made very clear that we are going to do whatever we need to do, and that we're confident LCC already are, but we won't oppose it.
Do any members wish to speak for or against the amendment? Oh, sorry, Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's quite
quite telling, isn't it, that we have a councillor speaking on cross-party support and then you just turning around and saying this amendment's pointless, not even attempting to amend the words of this motion. You've also spoken at length about what Wyre cannot do and what everybody else should be doing. Residents are supposed to be filling in diary sheets, the EA is supposed to be closing down the site, and Wyre can't do this and it can't do that. Well, what can we do? That's what the question was about from Dr. Barbara Neal. What can we do? Can we send down officers to go and do surveys? If we haven't got the resources to do it, why aren't we investing in them? This isn't the first health crisis that has happened in Wyre. It's the third biggest one since I was elected. What, 2 years ago? How many more have been happening since? How many more are going to happen after? Why aren't we being proactive? Why aren't we spending the mountains of money that our debt-free council has on finding a way to prevent these solutions, or at least gathering evidence so we can put pressure on the EA like you say we need to? Why are we just sitting on our hands and knees going, oh, it's somebody else's fault and nothing to do with us? It's not on us. We can't do this. They've got to do that. They've got to do this. When are we going to be proactive, Michael?
I think Councillor Vincent.
It's great that he's playing to the gallery, Madam Mayor, but let me just read to you from what I said. The reason why I said it was pointless, very specifically, was because we do not need to call on ourselves to do all we can when we are already doing all we can. So no. What do you mean?
Put it in writing.
We've just said we're not going to oppose it.
It's all well and good saying things, but if you've got it in writing, you're legally beholden to it. People can refer.
We're not opposing the amendment. What are you arguing with me about? We're not opposing the amendment. We're voting for your amendment. I don't know what you're arguing about. Let me read from what I said to Dr. Neal. We have taken advice from King's Council about the various possible avenues we can take to bring this awful situation to an end, including the service of an abatement notice. I will not be setting out Council's advice in a public meeting, as it may prejudice the action we are to take. I will, however, confirm that any possible steps or action Council has advised we may be able to take will be taken if they have any reasonable prospect of success. We are in the prospect of instructing external solicitors to assist our legal team and external consultants with expertise in landfill sites. We, as a council, have no such experience and so have until now been reliant upon the EA for this advice. We feel that obtaining our own independent advice is in the public interest. So that's what we're doing. And I've said that before tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Higginson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Vincent, you seem to be having a tough time this evening. I've noticed people very unhappy with some of the responses. Perhaps you think I'm playing to the gallery. How dare you criticise my colleague like that? He represents people in the same ward as me who have had these issues, and we want some answers. So I think I'm on the floor.
Can I just remind people to be respectful, please? Thank you. Respectfully, please, Councillor Higginson.
I had the floor, Madam Mayor, and I was interrupted. Rudely. I was interrupted.
Can you just proceed with your question, Councillor Higginson?
I will proceed with the question. I think there was also a missed opportunity earlier on when discussing all of these things, as he read it out, that this is not just about what the legal mumbo-jumbo is. This is a public health issue.
Yes, it is.
It's a public health issue. What we have been telling residents, oh, it's amusing, is it? It's amusing. It's amusing, is it? I don't think it's amusing, councillor.
But it's also
I don't think it's amusing at all. This is a public health issue, and some of the advice that we should all be giving to residents of this borough, those that are affected on both sides of the river, are that they should contact their local surgery, because it is a public health issue. There was no mention of this from Councillor Vincent this evening. Perhaps he didn't think it was appropriate, but I personally thought it was a lost opportunity. These people are absolutely terrified and they're fed up of what has been going on. Now, there's also a question that I wanted to ask following the response from the Leader of the Council,
when he said, I think you actually said, about these diary sheets, do you call them?
Yeah.
The diary sheets. I think you said that hundreds have been sent out. So, Madam Mayor, hundreds have been sent out, and yet, I don't know the exact figure, but apparently thousands of people have objected. So, if it is vital and fundamental that all of these people fill out these diary sheets, perhaps we shouldn't be sending hundreds of them out, but thousands.
Yeah.
If that is what is required to get the answers that we need, and if we all are wanted to close this site down, the landfill site, then that is what is required. So can I suggest that instead of sending hundreds out, and do people... that everyone that objects, if they haven't had this diary sheet, that they are entitled to have one, so that we can follow the correct procedure. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, if Councillor Higginson had listened to everything that I'd said, rather than just pick parts of it out, anybody who has complained from a household should have been sent one. So the 4,000 complaints the AA have had include numerous complaints from the same people and many complaints from people that don't live in the area. So it's not about anybody passing through being sent a diary sheet, it's the people that live there. Now, I'm aware that people are saying in the public gallery that they've not had diary sheets, right? I can only relay the information that I've received from officers, but first thing in the morning, the Chief Executive is going to make sure, because I'm going to make her, that everybody who has complained with an FY7 or an FY5 postcode is sent one as soon as possible. Okay?
Isn't a complaint enough?
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
I'd just like to say I very much support what Councillor Swatton said about being proactive. I think that it has been an ongoing problem and that Wyre should be a lot more visible and a lot stronger in its communication. There's a problem that residents are going through and have been for a long time, so we should be there and we should be visibly there. And in my opinion, that means not just sending out diary sheets, we should have stalls in areas where there are shops, where there are affected areas. There should be sheets in libraries. We should perhaps ask for an announcement at the football ground. I don't know, doctors, schools, but we should be really, really very visible in our solidarity and our help for local residents and how we communicate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Vincent said about the legal position of the council and what we're doing at the present time, which is quite a lot, to be quite honest. But it's obvious that we must work together to encourage the EA to take a tough approach in exercising its regulatory functions. I've attended quite a few meetings on this, and I went to the community meeting held in Fleetwood last Thursday, where the officer from the EA heard from many residents how this odorous smell was impacting on their lives and the lives of members of their families. And there have been frequent demonstrations, and children from Fleet School have been on TV and petitioned the Prime Minister. The EA therefore have no doubt of the impacts and the strength of feeling. At the meeting on Thursday, the EA officer was clear they would no longer allow the scenario, which has happened twice now, of Transwaste failing to properly manage the site with resulting smells and odours, the EA then ordering a suspension pending work being carried out on the site, which Transwaste then carried out, but weeks later the smells occur again because of the Transwaste's further mismanagement. The EA officer at the meeting was absolutely clear that this scenario would not be allowed to happen again. And if there are any further breaches of the permit which resulted in the emission of unacceptable noxious smells, then they would order the tipping to stop permanently and for the site to be remediated. We must therefore all hold the EA to account for this. if the EA fails to do this, then I know that this council will take lead council's advice and take legal action on behalf of the community and our residents. But we do need, as has been mentioned before, to have the necessary evidence to prove our case in a court. And for this reason, it's important that the residents and businesses continue to provide the detailed evidence by completing diary sheets and allowing home visits from environmental health officers. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
I'm obliged to you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Higginson is briefing me, and he always does extremely sensibly. Can you clarify how many diary sheets have been sent out? That's what I'd like to know, Michael. Seeing you think it's very important. And
I think that's been answered, Councillor.
And what has been the response?
You told us.
We've done that. I believe there was 1,000 sent out and we had 19 replies.
I must ask him for clarification. How many do you expect, Mike? And how important are they to supplement your case when you go along to your legal people or to everyone else? You know, in my opinion, and when these sort of sheets are sent out, loads of people say, "Oh, I'd love to have one," but nobody returns them. There's a very poor return. So we just hope that more will be returned, and obviously you will no doubt act on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. I won't go over the numbers again. As I say, I'm relying on information I got from the officers about the numbers. I can't 100% say exactly how many have gone out. I can only rely on information, but I'm told it's over 1,000. As has been said, we got 19 back and only one household has returned more than one. Now, it's our job to help get the message across. It's our job to make sure our residents understand. In terms of how many, well, the more the merrier. Like, genuinely, the more the merrier. But here's the key part. If we're going to deal with this quickly, if we get a cluster near Fleet School, for example, of people that are filling them in, and the wind goes a different way, that's going to delay us. So all of us who have different wards in areas that are effective need to find residents that have complained a lot and say, right, you need to do your bit. And that's what this is about. It's not just about these individuals, it's about the community. And comments have been made, obviously, about the fact that this is what we're doing and this is what we're asking other people to do. We are asking other people to do this so that we can then deal with the abatement notice. There are other things we are doing, things that I hope will be more successful than this, because this is just a legal argument with trans waste in the making. But it would be ridiculous of me to set out in a public meeting what we were planning on doing. It would not be in anybody's interest for me to do that. So there are other things that we are doing. They won't happen overnight, but we are doing other things. Just like the EA, I can't tell us what they're doing. I'm not going to say in a public meeting what they are, because I may as well just write to Trans Waste and tell them if I do.
Councillor Swatton.
Thank you. Pastor Dunn brought up the Easter story, and I'm reminded of a part of it, particularly Pontius Pilate washing his hands of the situation. We've talked at length about these diary sheets, passing it off to residents to fill them in for it. And I understand
Can we please
the point about not getting into the specifics, but people are asking the question, what are we doing? And it is such a wash of our hands to say we're doing everything we can. Can we not at least say, well, we will be sending out officers to do investigations, or some, basic, general, non-specific answer to show that we are doing something other than sending out pieces of paper for other people to do the work. I get that we cannot be giving specifics because we'll be tying our hands to the decision, we'll be letting Trans Waste know, but people need to know that more is being done than just these pieces of paper, and saying, well, we are doing more isn't enough to satisfy people that more is being done. People are in that gallery because they need to know, be reassured that we are doing more, and saying it isn't enough. We need to be providing at least some tangible evidence that more is actually being done. It's all well and good saying our hands are tied legally, but there must be at least one word legally that we can say about this.
Well, again, it's like, I know you can't tell me anything, but tell me something. Well, one thing, Councillor Swatton, that I have said is that we have the right in the lease to review the lease as of the 1st of April. And the part of that review, one thing that is available to us is to review what they are allowed to tip in light of regulation, etc. So one of the options available to us, which we are already on with, is appointing an external consultancy firm who specialise in landfill, because we certainly don't have that expertise in-house, and they will then conduct that review on our behalf. I can't tell you what that will lead to, because I don't know. However, we know the problems, we know what we think the problems are, but we need to now get the consultant to get the evidence. That's one thing we are doing. That's in the lease. Already told people we're doing that. I've already mentioned it tonight. The other things, I'm afraid, people might not like it that I can't give them more information, but I am not going to prejudice the action that we could take that might actually do some good for the sake of keeping people happy. Because it's pretty obvious that whatever I say, I can't make people think we're doing enough anyway. So it is much better that I just take the flak from people and do what's needed to actually help them than just say what people want me to say. I won't do it. What I will do is everything within my power to see this horrible situation finished with, and finished with properly. That is what I will do. If people believe me or not, that's up to them. That's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer. Just a one-word amendment if we're going to vote on the amendment. It says, ensure the site ceases to receive hazardous waste, but I believe we should delete the word hazardous because it would be any waste that decomposes and causes gases. Are you happy with that amendment?
Can I just comment? So if I could just explain, for technical legal reasons, that is unlikely. So when they were suspended, they were able to carry on tipping inert waste. There is absolutely no money in inert waste. So if they are banned from tipping anything other than inert waste, you may as well just ban them from tipping anything. So the reason why the word hazardous has been used is because that is realistically what the EA are going to be able to do. But the roundabout way is that's what will happen.
Clearway or whatever they're called may require inert waste to cap the tip off and seal the problem.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
I'm okay. I hear you totally about the legal points. You have to gather evidence and do it correctly. I also hear Councillor Swatton who says the people need to see. If I just open what you said a minute ago, Councillor Vincent, about your external consultancy firm, hopefully, just to give the people some idea of any protection, they will be looking at any gases that are being emitted from the site, and that will be used as evidence. And therefore, you've got another way of evidence being produced, as well as the diaries. Please don't think it'll just be diaries, but the external consultancy should be looking at things in a very thorough way on all levels. I think that's the point. The council are not equipped to do that, but external experts will be, and they'll be looking out for whatever's coming out, so you feel you are protected. It will be evidence against trans waste. Does that sound about right?
Thank you, yes.
All I will say on that is I'm not going to comment other than that sounds inherently sensible.
Councillor Minto.
To say, I will volunteer. I don't need a microphone. I will volunteer to take out. All right. I will volunteer to take out all these diaries, and I want it to be clarified that they can be backdated so that the people you can't backdate them. Right. Bloody hell.
I can just come back on that. Just to be clear as well, while we are aware, obviously, that the smell has continued while it's been suspended, the general consensus is it hasn't been as bad as when they were tipping. So, effectively, if people were to go back and backdate them, then that would not be as good evidence because it wasn't done at the time. So we don't want that or need it because it's not good evidence.
Right. Well, can I suggest that we write to the EA and ask them for the cost certificates, consignment of substances hazardous to health. Now that should have, each wagon should have its own cost certificate to say what is on board, what tonnage is on it is. The weighbridge will tell us that, and this is the questions we should be asking the EA to clarify. And then the EA, maybe, because the guy who we listened to last Thursday wasn't up to the job. He did not know his subject, and it was clear that he pussyfooted round and he didn't know his subject. Now, he needs to get somebody from the EA who does know the subject and get on with it. Thank you.
Do you want to respond, Councillor Vincent? Councillor Higginson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Unless I missed it amidst all this. I did say, and it is a serious question, and I'm not playing to the gallery or anything, but could we have some advice in addition to these diaries that you know, the Vincent Diaries, that's a headline for your newspapers, isn't it? Sorry, just trying to lighten the mood a little bit, but I do seek some advice to the point that I was trying to make earlier, and that is about people complaining to their local surgeries if they are feeling unwell, if they're feeling physically unwell, if they're feeling mentally unwell, because that was the point I was trying to make about it being a public health issue and having some more weight to our objections. I'm not aware that the Leader of the Council responded to that point, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
I didn't, Madam Mayor, and that was remiss of me. For fear of getting shot again, we Lancashire County Council are the Public Health Authority, so we don't have any public health responsibilities. I absolutely agree with you that anybody who is feeling either physically or mentally unwell because of this absolutely must seek medical attention, because only when they seek medical attention will that then go towards the data that needs to be built for this to be dealt with as a health and safety issue. So I'm not washing my hands of it, I'm just saying that this is, the reason why I didn't answer it is because it is outside of our sphere of influence. It's not either public nuisance and it's not anything to do with the lease, and we are not the Public Health Authority, that's LCC.
But with respect, should we not be encouraged to do this? Surely, as this authority, surely we can be encouraging people to...
Would hope that we didn't need to encourage people that were unwell to seek medical attention, but okay, but we'll take it on board as part of the communication strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While we supported the original motion in principle that came to us tonight, I would like to second the amendment that's been put before you, as we really do want to stress that we don't feel, at least in the written form, the collaboration that's been demonstrated in this room tonight is reflected in the original amendment, in the original motion. Our amendment seeks to address that. Yes, the original motion did call for the Environment Agency to ensure the Jameson Road landfill is capped and permanently closed, but it misses critical elements. What's missing is a call for all authorities with statutory duties to recognise their role, step up and work together. This includes the Environment Agency, Lancashire County Council, Wyre Borough Council as both landlord and enforcing authority, and perhaps even the CPS if it is found that criminal activity has taken place. We know that just yesterday the Environment Agency lifted its suspension notice, meaning waste is now being accepted again. The cap may be installed, but ongoing maintenance and enforcement are vital. And while the Environment Agency must regulate the environmental permit, we must also question Lancashire County Council's role. Variations have been made to the original 1999 planning permission, but no full new application, including environmental or a quality impact assessment, has been submitted in over 25 years. That process must be reviewed. It's troubling that the latest variation to the planning application was submitted on the 12th of December 2017, just 3 weeks before it expired. And yet that same application was not granted until March 2021, over 3 years later, and only one day before the Cabinet of this Council signed the deed of variation that they prepared on the 24th of March 2021. We also know that Transwaste has breached its planning conditions on multiple occasions and should therefore, we should also be calling for full enforcement action to be investigated by the LCC. I'm delighted that the leader of the council has confirmed tonight that you've got legal experts looking into your own legal options. And we have heard that any abatement notice would give Transwaste 3 months to fix a breach. But the common law offence of public nuisance possibly could give us firmer grounds. They may have been given opportunities to fix specific breaches, but they have clearly not fixed the breach of public nuisance caused by the ongoing smell. This is a criminal offence under the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022. Of course, this chamber is not the appropriate place to litigate these matters. I, nor any other councillor, has recognised our limitations in that regard. But it is the place to demand that Wyre fully investigates this legal avenue and that we have a record of it. I want to remind colleagues that back in August 2024, the council was asked why it couldn't issue an abatement notice. The response was that it would be quicker to rely on the Environment Agency. Well, 9 months later, and as far as the community is concerned, nothing has changed. Residents are still suffering the loss of their amenity, the enjoyment of their homes, and are potentially being exposed to hazardous impacts on their health. I speak to people on the doorstep and out in the community who rage when they are reporting nosebleeds and respiratory impact of close family members. When they report how hard the current process is for reporting to the council versus to the Environment Agency. I was at the public meeting on Thursday night and I obviously recognised how high emotions were. But people do feel trapped in a vicious cycle. The stench is now going to return, another enforcement is issued, restrictions are then lifted, and the smell returns again and again. And I do hear what Councillor Berry said in relation to what John Neville said in relation to the Environment Agency. And I would accept that from my understanding of the Environment Agency, they are indeed looking at ensuring that that pattern does not return. Obviously, it's also been brought up tonight, and I'm pleased that Wyre Borough Council have clarified tonight that it is going to take full advantage of its lease review, and it will consider potentially restrictions on hazardous waste. It also gives you increased powers to inspect, to demand compliance, and to act on statutory nuisance. And this is why our Labour amendment was so important. It called for all relevant authorities, Lancashire County Council, Wyre Borough Council and the Environment Agency, to act collaboratively together. And most importantly, for the lease review to remove the future opportunity for the tipping of hazardous waste, and for us to have a record of it in the amended motion. In conclusion, I support the motion because Wyre must go further than the original, I support the amendment because we must go forward further than the original motion. The residents of Fleetwood and Wyre deserve more than deflection. They deserve more than to be trapped in a vicious cycle. They deserve action, transparency and accountability. I would encourage all council colleagues to vote fairly on this matter and in the spirit of collaboration that has been voiced tonight, and support our amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fayle, as proposer of the amendment, could you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reassure members that there was no wish for this to be a wrecking amendment. This is about putting into writing and committing the Council, LCC and the EA to take action collectively and collaboratively. This is about all stakeholders working together to close the landfill for good, for the good of residents, very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to vote on the amendment. Would those in favour please show? That's unanimous. The amendment is carried. The motion, as amended, therefore takes the place of the original motion. Do any members wish to propose any further amendments to that amended motion, which has now become the substantive motion? Would members now please vote on a substantive motion, i.e. the amendment recommendation? All those in favour please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. The substantive motion is carried. We'll now continue with the next agenda.
It's just an observation that I'm a bit disappointed with the behaviour of some councillors in here tonight towards the members of the public, which we're here to express the democratic right to attend this public meeting. Bit of barracking, bit of interrupting. We as councillors expect that.
Councillor.
The public do not.
Thank you, Councillor. If you wish to, you can contact the monitoring officer. I think we need to move on with the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. The next item is item 7, executive reports. A polite reminder that each speaker has 3 minutes only, and there will be 10 minutes of speaking overall for each executive report. Please indicate clearly by raising your hand if you wish to speak. Please also note that I may refuse supplementary questions in order to ensure that as many different questions, many members are possible able to ask questions or to make a comment within the 10 minutes allocated. So the first report is the Leader of the Council. Councillor Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone's probably heard enough from me tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Higginson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's with regards to contamination of the land at the Hill House site. It would seem that it's been a disappointing response from Baroness Taylor of Stevenage, responding on behalf of the Deputy... Sorry.
Start again. It's regards the contamination at the Hill House site, and with regards to moratorium on future planning applications in that area. I think the Leader of the Council suggested that it was a disappointing response from Baroness Taylor, responding on behalf of the Deputy Prime Minister. On the contrary, I think it's to his credit and this authority's credit that we have actually contacted government about this, and clearly they believe that dealing with issues such as land contamination is in our remit. So this must give us some teeth to actually deal with these things properly. And therefore, rather than continue to approve planning applications in and around that area whilst these investigations are going on, might I suggest, and I'm sure you would all agree, it would be sensible to suspend any planning applications whilst these investigations are going on. Would you not agree with that, please? Thank you.
Councillor Vincent, thank you.
I do agree with it, Madam Mayor, but the problem is, Councillor Higginson, that the powers that the government refer to do not go anywhere near as far enough to allow us to do that. All we asked them to do effectively was within a very small area give us the right not to determine any planning applications until the investigation was complete. If we take that step ourselves without their backing, the developers will appeal on non-determination grounds and win. So while the Baroness does allude to the fact that she thinks she's got these powers, we've got these powers, the reality is that the current government think that the planning authority of this council should just be expunged completely, that we are blockers, is the word that the Prime Minister uses all the time. So I don't think she's saying that you've got lots of power to do what you do to block these. I think she's basically saying we're not going to give you what you need. You should just carry on granting planning permissions, because we do have the power to require them to do more investigations and more detailed environmental studies and things like that when they apply. We do have that, and we will exercise those powers and we'll force them to do that. But if they do it, we can't not determine them or block them. That's blockers, that's what the PM says.
So, Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification of that response, if I may just quickly indulge you further. Does this mean that the written response that's before us and in this agenda gives us no additional clout at all? Is that you speaking, you've heard this one before, as a councillor or your other job?
No, that's me speaking exclusively as a councillor, because I will not make that mistake.
All right, okay. Well, I'm glad I asked the question. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a slightly different take on that. I think, given the potential dangers of PFOA contaminated land and the generally unimpressive record of planning authorities in stopping inappropriate development, I thought the response from Baroness Taylor was slightly worrying. But anyway, we are where we are. So the council now needs to take whatever action it needs to for the sake of residents. The council was right to take the better safe than sorry approach to the eating of homegrown fruit and veg. So, and perhaps the council should take a similar approach with planning applications by simply deferring, and that's what Councillor Higginson was saying, by simply deferring all applications for new build in the designated area until such time as the impact of the contamination is fully known, and the land for the proposed builds is cleared of all contamination. Would you agree with that?
Madam Mayor, if he can get the planning committee to do what he says, he's a better man than me.
Councillor Rimmer.
I'm on the same point, really. I was also disappointed in the response, and I appreciate the investigations are going in now as to what Wyre can do. And I wondered that indeed information on what the framework allows us to do as a council would be very useful, both publicly, some very short statement on the multi-agency web page that we've got, but also kind of briefing and guidance to the planning committee, I think would be very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I would expect, obviously, that when an application within that area, in the affected area where we can require them to do the further environmental studies comes in, that already, where's Richard, there he is, that already the head of planning would be giving specific advice on those issues to the planning committee in any matter. Just to sort of make people a bit more comfortable, there are not many sites in the local plan in this area. There are still some, but there's one in particular, but I would expect NPL to be more of a barrier to that than anything else.
Thank you, Councillor Rimmer.
Just in terms of the sites that have already been built on, I understand that we can't go back and correct or give new conditions on planning that's already been approved. I'd just like to say that from my personal opinion is that we could be asking developers to do the extra investigations that they should do that weren't conditions, and in fact with all the public furore, if they don't, they'll find them very hard to sell.
No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, I'll keep it brief. It was really just to follow up on your comment, Councillor Vincent, that there isn't actually that much land left in the contamination zone. I was just wondering if you had actually done an assessment of the sites, the potential number of houses that would actually be held up if there was to be a deferment. Thank you.
We have looked at it. I can't remember numbers or anything off the top of my head, so we'll get a written response on that. But I believe that there are 2 sites that effectively we would be putting on hold, but we'll get you a better answer than that.
Thank you. That concludes the leaders' report. We will now move on to the report of the resources portfolio holders. Thank you. Councillor McKay, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before members. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the benefit of all councillors, but in particular new councillors, can the portfolio holder please elaborate on para 2.4 with regards to the signing off of accounts for 23-24 and recent accounts also signed off under the so-called backstop arrangements, and explain how this arose and why it's been necessary. A statement to that effect in the minutes might help reduce the likelihood of any conspiracy theories being put forward by those trying to cause mischief. Thanks.
Councillor McKay, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yep, Councillor Fell, this was the bane of my life when I was chair of Audit Committee. We had a nightmare with the annual accounts, and it was nothing to do with our officers. It was a problem nationally. There were issues with accounting policies, which I'm not going to bore you with here, but the majority of local authorities got into a position because of these changes in legislation that the third-party auditors couldn't sign off on the accounts in time. So it was a national problem, and although our figures are ready, our accounts were ready for sign-off, it was months and months, and Claire would agree with me, our officers were put through turmoil of having to keep answering the same questions to the auditors, and it got to a point where the government put this backstop in place where they wanted all the accounts that were out of date to get signed off, to get to a point where we could move on, because obviously you can't move on and start preparing your next set of accounts until you've closed down the previous year. So the backstop arrangements were put in, so the accounts were signed off with maybe not the level of assurance that we would have wanted, but that was the same for all councils across the country, to get to a point where we're now in a position that our accounts going forward will be signed off with the necessary assurances. But it was a problem for all councils, and I think we were actually ahead of the game at Wyre because we were so ready, but unfortunately it was just one of those things we couldn't get around.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My item is linked to items 3.4 to 3.8 within your report. Can you confirm what the standard working hours and holidays are of council employees covered by the NJC? And can you provide any update on when the results of the consultation are to be considered by the national employers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. It's a standard, really. It's a standard 37-hour week. And annual leave after 5 years of employment is 29 days, so they're pretty standard, but we don't actually expect to hear anything back pre the May elections, but hopefully after then we'll have an update.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Resources Portfolio Holders Report. We'll now move on to the report of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holder. Councillor Bridge, would you please introduce your report?
My report's in front of you, Madam Mayor. Any questions? I'm quite happy to answer.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like you to pass on my thanks and gratitude to the workforce on the ground who worked really hard to remove the fly tipping and rubbish down the 2 alleyways you mentioned in 3.6 of your report. Obviously not a pleasant job. But sadly, since the Seymour Street clear-up, there has been another incident, and hopefully it has been a one-off and the alley will remain reasonably clear for the foreseeable future. And to be honest, I'm surprised I've not been reported for loitering with intent. The amount of time I spend traipsing up and down alleys and streets in the work, camera at the ready, literally. Anyway, sorry, I digress a bit. I reported both those areas some months ago and liaised during that time with officers to get the rubbish removed and deep cleans undertaken. However, there was quite a lengthy delay in the Bowl Street clear-up. I reported it back in December, met on site not long after with the staff from the Environmental Enforcement team, and they were looking at getting the work completed early in the new year. The clean-ups, though, wasn't done until mid-March, and the biggest problem with the hold-up was down to resources, i.e. lack of staff. I appreciate staff have holidays, there's sickness, but this is not just a one-off issue. There is an ongoing problem. I know interviews have taken place recently to replace someone who's retired, but that's not to bolster the lack of manpower within the street scene team. I appreciate that temporary seasonal staff are also taken on, but they're just for grounds maintenance. Currently, there are just 25 on-the-ground operatives and another 3 in supervisory roles. This clearly isn't enough when you consider the massive area that they have to cover and the ever-increasing number in Wyre's population and housing over recent years. And like any business, including the NHS, when staff are having to stretch themselves day in, day out, this just exacerbates the problems and they themselves end up going off sick. So can I ask you that you look at reviewing the numbers employed in the street scene team, because more staff are clearly needed if we're to say roads, streets and alleyways return to an acceptable level of cleanliness. And I do appreciate the problem is mostly human-made. I'm not going to say man-made because I've been accused of being sexist, but human-made, people-made. But the majority of law-abiding residents are suffering as a result. And also it'll stop people wondering what I'm up to if I save on shoe leather. Thank you.
I shall take a closer look at any sort of, if you like, crisis areas and see what sort of timescales it is. Obviously we're all constrained by budgets, etc. I'll look.
Could it be a project for the transformation team to look at?
That's way above my pay grade.
There you go.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
Hello. I was very pleased to see in your report about the interaction between Wyre Borough Council enforcement officers and the volunteer group known as, let's bring it down to earth, the Dog Poo Patrol, who have picked up to date approximately 1,400 dog poos, but they've done a sterling job in raising the profile of this issue. They've had meetings with Alan God, I've lost his name. I lost his name when I talked to him all the time. Alan Fitzpatrick and his team in Knott End, and I'm sure they will also be thrilled with the news that you have now got an external enforcement little team going, and Alan has promised them that Knott End and Preesall will be a priority area. So they will be thrilled with that. So thank you very much for working together.
I mean, I would like to thank all the volunteers that have helped. I mean, we're all councillors and whatever else, we're still members of our community. And so be it for me, Poulton in Bloom, or that I experience, or the litter picking we do and everything else, we do all get stuck in, but some areas are some areas excel, and I think it's been really successful there, and it makes all of our community nicer for everybody, but it's greatly appreciated by us that the community is getting involved as well, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to make point to Councillor Duffy that both under the auspices of both ONS and also the Climate Change Subcommittee, we have set up a small working party task group under the excellent chairmanship of Councillor Livesey to look at that whole area of fly tipping, and there's some recommendations which are either coming or have come through to Councillor Bridge and the Cabinet. And we are alive to that problem. It's extremely serious, and I think it's right at national level people are sharing that concern, so you won't have to walk the dark alleys, I hope, too much longer.
If you've got Sir Robert on your side, then I'm sure you're winning.
can I just do one last interjection? Obviously, it's not just fly tipping, it is issues with litter. And I did a voluntary litter pick week before last. Not that you probably want to know this. On one street, I actually literally picked up 3 pairs of men's cast-out underpants. Because there you go. I certainly do earn my allowance, thank you very much.
I really wouldn't
And I have the photo.
I really wouldn't mention that while you're talking about hanging around back alleys.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Planning Policy and Economic Development Portfolio Holder. Councillor Marinell, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reports before members, and quite happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's regarding the local plan timetable. My question is, will the new MPPF, published in December 2024, have any further effects on the local plan and planning and development? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. The new MPPF, or as I call it, Angela's Bonkers Planning Charter, will have a dramatic effect on planning in Wyre, without any doubt, and to the detriment of residents, I would say. The government and Angela want to build 1.5 million new homes around the country. So there's a breakdown, actually, of that. Total time is 5 years. That's 52 weeks per year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 60 minutes an hour. That's 3,110,400 minutes. 1.5 million homes divided by that is 0.48 homes per minute, or 2.5 every 5 minutes. Up to January 31st, 2025, they'd achieved just 107,000. So you do the maths for the rest of it. Angela's plan is to make thousands more houses built in Wyre alone, which is frightening in itself. It should have been 2,500 a year, or 2,700 a year, and that's dramatically increased now. With other boroughs, we had a duty to cooperate with neighbouring boroughs. If they were stuck for somewhere to build, they would ask us, do you have any land to build on? And we would turn around and say, no, sorry, we don't have any land for you to build on, and that would be it. Angela's new charter, of course, has taken all that away. She's given that right is going to be written into stone, where we cannot say no. We've got Blackpool sitting next door to us that need 11,000 new homes, and they literally have not a place to build any at all. Where do you think they're going to come and build 11,000 homes? Because they'll come knocking on our door, and they're going to go knocking on File's door, because that's what they need to do to build the 11,000 homes. That's on top of the thousands more that we need to build in Wyre ourselves. You're looking at 11 or 12,000 new homes in Wyre, which is absolutely frightening. So due to cooperate means nothing at all to her. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, Angela realised that there was something else, a bit of a problem with building all these houses. It might impact actually on climate change and environment. So she's now proposing a new tax on developers of £3,000 to £5,000 per house built. And developers now turn around and say that will not be financially viable. So a target of 1.5 million homes is already going to be missed. And if that's the case, where she's going to impose more taxes on developers to build each unit that they're not going to build, makes her problem even worse. I believe that when Angela first decided on this bonkers planning policy, that she stuck her finger in a gob, stuck it in the air, and decided, yeah, that's it, that'll do, because she basically, on planning, is completely clueless. And I think every single planning department in the whole of the country realise exactly the same thing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
Councillor Marinell, I'm just going to be a little bit cheeky. I see in your report there are currently 118 open enforcement investigations. Are you able to let myself and Councillor Rimmer know which ones are open in our area?
Councillor Marinell, would you please respond?
I can find out for you. I don't know the particular ones in your area, if there are any in your area, but I can find out, give you a written note. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Wyre. So it's just for following up on the National Planning Policy Framework, which obviously is going to make the importance of local people to actually be part of the consultation even more important. The decisions that are going to be made in the local plan, from the looks of things, no comments made on whether I agree with it or not, should actually make it more and more important that if it actually adheres to the local plan, it would probably get permission to go through. So I think my question is about how actively and visibly are we doing to explain to people the differences now to the local plan and how important that's going to be, and to actually push that out and make sure that people are actually consulted. I recall the local plan, before it obviously was amended to this new timescale, was actually set for consultation over the summer, and it was just not adequate for people to get involved and have their say. I think this is even more important as we move forward now, because what goes in that local plan is really going to matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marinell, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. We did the last consultation we did was really good. We got some really good responses, which are fantastic. They did a lot of road shows, which was great. I know Councillor Rimmer did quite a bit of stuff around her area as well, which was good. But I agree. The consultation that opens the next one, we must push forward as much as we can, because residents need to understand exactly what's going on with the new MPPF, and we'll work with the local plan as much as possible to mitigate that. But it's going to be difficult from what government will actually want to do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Atkins, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say a very big thank you to Fiona Riley and her team going through these very difficult situations at the moment. Again, as regards development, we've only got to look at the Nateby one, where they started this quite some time ago, and the difficulties they have with clay and rain has caused them to go to 2 blocks of where the housing is to have those pile drived, so that therefore will increase the price of the houses. And the other side of the whole site is either clay or it's gravel and sand, and they mix together, and this is causing incredible difficulties. So that can't just be for Nateby, that's going to be through the whole country, so that again is going to hold up the housing development. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Marinell, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I agree with Dulcie. That's exactly the case, and Fiona and the team do work incredibly hard. I think when a new thing comes out from anything new comes out for the government due to planning, she must just think, oh no, not again, and tear her hair out. But they do an incredible job, and her team do a great job as well. And I really appreciate everything they do as well. It's not an easy thing to get along with, and pushing the local plan back because of the changes, just adds more work for them as well. So it's not an easy thing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Planning Policy and Economic Development Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holder. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before members. I'll do my best to respond to any questions raised.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is linked to item 2.6 of your report and the increase in proposed by the Police and Crime Commissioner, which was agreed, which when combined with other increases contained in the overall council tax bill is a significant uplift. How will Wyre in particular benefit from this increase? Thank you.
I think I've indicated in my report that the main benefit will be that there will be 20 additional police officers and 20 additional PCSOs. Obviously they're spread to be divided throughout Lancashire, so how many we will actually get in Wyre, it remains to be seen, to be quite honest. A lot of the money that certainly the Commissioner has received from government, about half of that funding will be used to pay for national insurance contributions. So the rest of the money and the money that's raised on our council tax will be very much used to pay for the increased police salaries that have been agreed, and also the increased charges and cost of generally running an organisation which we're all familiar with. So there's very little to show for it. It's a matter of just balancing the books as far as the Commissioner is concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Councillor Rimmer.
Yes, just to say it was very pleasing to see that there's extra funding now available for the homeless and victims of domestic abuse within safe accommodation and their children. I wondered if you could give us any more information about what the funding's for, if it's like individual support for temporary accommodation or the direct assistance for individuals, or if it's for advice for staff, whatever. Thanks.
I think most of the funding will be towards the Fylde Women's Aid, who we work closely with because they do a fantastic job throughout Wyre. It's a matter of sort of assisting mainly with accommodation for people, trying to make people safe in their own homes who are being threatened by domestic abuse, or if they have to leave or do leave, finding other accommodation for them. So we will use those fundings to do that in consultation and working with Fylde Women Aid.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holder. Councillor Bowen, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before you. I just want to congratulate Carol Southern and her team, as well as all the volunteers that help people get into a healthier lifestyle. They did fantastically well to win that award. When you consider that they were against several large authorities, much bigger than what Wyre is. So, yeah, they did a fantastic job.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bowen, I'd like to thank people again. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the staff who installed the new benches along the Esplanade in Fleetwood. The feedback from local residents has been amazing. They really do look brilliant. But it wasn't an easy task in getting someone to take responsibility for providing the new benches. Lancashire County Council were very hard work to deal with. The hard work to deal with anything that's occurring within the ward. But eventually, after working with Gary Scott here at Wyre did agree to look at funding possibilities, and benches were procured using the UK SPF funding. However, surely with over 30 million in the bank, Wyre Council should be looking at utilising these funds for such projects and many other projects within the borough, because for once I actually agree with Councillor Vincent in that any monies left when Wyre Borough is disbanded, and that may not be that far ahead of us, will be swallowed up in the process and more than likely targeted elsewhere. So as the saying goes, use it or lose it, and could we start putting some of the funds now for the benefit of the residents of the Wyre, of the borough, before it's too late? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it's very annoying when we have to pay for things that the county council should be paying for, and if we carry on paying for everything what they should be paying for, then they'll never step forward to actually do what they're supposed to do. So yeah, we would like to put money into various things, but we still want the county council to step forward and pay what they're supposed to be paying for.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
Hello, thank you again for the report. I was interested in the Life in Wyre survey. I appreciate it's still being analysed. I see we'd sent out 4,000. I wondered if we had any initial information on how many had replied, and also what the process will be for follow-up in case we get any negative feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen.
I'll have to look into that and I'll get you a written answer.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
Good evening, Councillor Bowen down there. First of all, I'd like to say, you know, with the way the theme's been going tonight, your report was particularly uplifting. There's a lot of activities in there and a great deal of work by many people and groups. So I did really enjoy reading all the positivity. What I would say to you is, though, where were those bear hunt theatre things this time? Sorry. The bear hunt
Bear, Hunt. No, well, all I'll say is Preesall and Knott End have a couple of stages that would easily facilitate that. And just following on from what Councillor Rimmer's just said, I think the Wyre, Life in Wyre survey will be quite interesting this year. You know, hopefully people will fill it in. There's a good place to get your evidence starting to be brought in as well. Feedback, get your residents to fill in.
We're trying to use all the village halls in the rural areas now, so you know you should be getting something there in Knott End.
And Preesall.
Yeah, Preesall.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do you have a date of when the sales are going to be put back on Marsh Mill, please?
We're hoping that it's going to be ready in June, early June, but it's only that wooden piece of wood that was rotten has now been replaced, but it should be all finished for June.
Thank you. Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just something on point 3.6 on this. I've noticed support needs such as autism, ADHD and learning difficulties to do with play inclusion. Now, it's all very well talking about play inclusion. I'm going to go back to how our residents are suffering. I know and have been told that our residents with children with autism, learning difficulties, ADHD, seriously suffering the effects of the toxic smells from the landfill. They are getting... Would you agree with that?
Well, I'm sure it can't be doing them any good.
Exactly.
But that's another thing for us to look at, you know, when we're collecting the evidence.
So are we getting any feedback from parents with these children or even themselves older with autism? But I think it's based on children. So it's talking about schools.
To do with the smell?
As to whether they've been off school because of it.
I think, Councillor, that's more Councillor Vincent.
Is it? Could you answer it, Councillor Vincent?
It's a perfectly legitimate point, and it's a very good point, particularly any child, non-verbal, autistic, for example. It will pose particular challenges for those families. I can't say that I'm aware of any specific evidence that's been collated by those people. What I would say is 100% definitely, though, they would be great people to complete the diaries, because they can provide some very good evidence, because obviously it will impact them and the use of their property in a way that will go far beyond somebody who wasn't dealing with a neurodiverse child.
50s now, she's not a child. She's been hospitalised twice with, what do they call it when, seizures, epileptic seizures. They can't find a cause for those epileptic seizures. It's been documented at the hospital. She's done various tests. It started at the same time, and she moved from one area to live with my sister when my mother died.
I can't
so it's obviously affecting...
I can't comment on the cause. All I would say is that there are lots of people who are reporting health issues that they didn't have before, that they believe may be linked to the smell. I am not a doctor, nor am I going to comment on the cause of that, but there's an awful lot of coincidental evidence if there is no link. So,
but these are being reported to the doctors, are they then? They're not coming back to you?
Yeah,
sorry,
so we are the health authority, so they wouldn't come back to us, it would go back via the doctor's surgeries and feed into that data. I have to say that the amount of interest from the UK health people so far has been disappointing, and that's very much on our list of people that we need to start really hammering to get more involved.
Because the social workers that are in, whether it's to these children or the older people, they would have the details on this, because they would have reported the episodes of panic, non-sleeping, missing school, trauma. So they should have the details on it, the reports on it.
And again, this is where, for for the benefit of members, it becomes difficult and people get frustrated. And I get it, I completely get it, because you've effectively got, even as council, we've got landlord, we've got nuisance, then you've got the health. There is very little overlap between the statutory regimes. You know, they should overlap to form a normal case, but you've got the law of property, you've got the law of nuisance, and you've got the health law, and there is very little overlap between them that you can actually use in a meaningful way. So what I would say is, keep going to the doctors, keep reporting those things, it helps. Definitely get them to fill a diary in.
But if we had an episode of a communicable disease, straight away, Wyre Borough Council's environmental health would be in on it and would start to do something about it.
If there was evidence of that, and that's the issue, is we would need the evidence of that communicable disease first, rather than the smell. And this is where it gets technical.
But it's not just the smell. It's toxic.
But until somebody gives us evidence that says it is toxic, and they aren't giving us evidence yet,
so
we can't treat it as that. And this is the frustration. We get it. We don't like this. We want to end this. I am desperate to end this. I don't want another meeting like this tonight. Not for my benefit, for the benefit of residents. We know how angry they are. We want to be able to put 2 and 2 together and make 4, but at the minute it makes 3. That's the problem.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just following on from the point that's been made in regards to the number of diary sheets that the council is actually looking to obtain in order to actually have enough evidence. I wonder if you could just clarify that in a second. Thank you. And then the second question is just in relation to what you've said about the UKHSA. I'm also aware that one of the big issues is that the doctors, the GPs, do not actually have a code on their system. So if you go with a respiratory problem or a nosebleed, you're turning up with a respiratory problem or a nosebleed. There's absolutely no association made between that and the actual symptom that you're displaying and the landfill. So that is a big issue. That was also present in the Worley Quarry scenario, and one of the things that the council decided to do there was actually commission its own health survey to actually complement the diary sheets. I wonder if that's something you've given any thought to. Thank you.
It's not my report anymore. I answered one question because it was asked to Lynn in things. I will ask it, but I'm not going to answer another one. Yes, it is something that we are talking about and considering. It's not straightforward because immediately we would be stepping on other people's toes. So the first thing that we have to do is try and gently encourage people to do more. And when that fails, as it has with the EA, we then step in and say, well, we'll do it then. In terms of the numbers of the diary sheets, I can't give you a number, and I'll tell you why. If there are 5 zones, depending on which way the wind goes, or 4, north, south, east and west, if it's bad and it blows west, then we need 20, 25 there. The more we have, the better, but equally not everybody is going to regularly complete them. There'll be gaps, people will be on holiday, etc. I don't want to say if we get 20, that's fine, because if we get 50, that's better.
Thank you. Thank you. So that concludes the consideration of the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holders Report. Now it's the opportunity for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on the reports of their colleagues. Do any Cabinet members wish to do so?
Absolutely not.
Are you sure? That concludes consideration of executive reports. We will now move on to agenda item 8, Transformation Strategy and Programme. Councillor Vincent, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Training seems like a long time ago now. So, Madam Mayor, the transformation strategy is very important. There are obviously naysayers who say that all councils do this and you're just box ticking, but that's not what we're doing here. Sarah has produced an excellent strategy and programme, and she's done that by, she has some day-to-day responsibilities, but she has done that by not having a day-to-day. If you ask the people in the departments, they have to be on board with this, how they want to transform, they would have a very defined view of what that is. Having some external input and influence from Sarah and the team has been very, very important, and the programme has been adapted to reflect the fact that, who's got one on? To reflect the fact that the long and medium term aims of a transformation strategy are probably not worth exploring in light of local government reorganisation. So, happy to recommend the strategy and programme. I thank Sarah and the team for her work, and I hope everybody can support it.
Is there a seconder for the proposal, please? Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Councillor Rimmer.
It was just a short comment. I understand that we don't really know exactly what's happened with devolution, etc., but I really welcome the fact that the workforce was such a priority in the transformation strategy, and I hope that if there's any opportunities funding anything that's linked to it, due to the uncertainty about devolution, that we'd really focus on staff, any training, role reviews, any assistance we can give them because of the uncertain future. So just support for our staff, really.
Yeah, we've got to always be mindful when we talk about the politics of LGR that it is a concern for our staff. They should have reassurance from how this has happened everywhere in the past, which is that all staff from all councils are all trooping across to one big authority, so everybody has that protection and they will have a job in the new authority. But I think that from there, people will then be concerned. But obviously, again, there is no immediate threat because of LGR to their security of job. We do obviously value the staff, and the staff are our main asset. So it is very important that we take them with us and that we make sure that they're properly engaged and properly trained. So I take on board what you say, and yeah, completely agree.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. Would members now please vote on the recommendation? Those in favour, please show. The recommendation is approved. The next item is item 9, Economic Development and Visitor Economic Strategy. Councillor Vincent, would you please introduce the report and one of you propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This strategy has never been more important. And the reason why I say that, Madam Mayor, is that because there are things that we do as a council and things that we value as a council, from the market to the marine hall to our tourist economy, that when LGR happens could be in jeopardy if they are not performing well. So it has never been more important to make sure that we spend as much time while we have it on economic development and the visitor economy to make sure that we have a thriving economy and visitor strategy. There are lots of arms to this. I don't plan on setting them out here. It is an excellent document. I think it covers all the bases. It deals with all the different areas of Wyre, and I think that it really focuses on the potential that Wyre has. It would be remiss of me, and I hate to bring it up again, not to mention the smell, because quite simply businesses in Fleetwood and Thornton Cleveleys are going to die if something is not done about it. Okay? So this is not to ignore that, because we don't ignore that. I have spoken to various people who are genuinely concerned, and there are a lot of jobs at stake. So this strategy doesn't deal with that, but we're not ignoring that when we put the strategy forward. Happy to recommend the strategy, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal? Any comments, questions or amendments? Councillor Fayle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's pleasing that Labour's initiative to create a tourism strategy is being taken forward. Many of the aspects of this whole strategy are approved of. However, there are a number of deficiencies which should have already been put right following Wyre Labour's consultation submission. We do recognise that this is a living document and are hopeful that this oversight will be addressed in due course. Here are a couple of what we believe are deficiencies in the strategy. One of the commitments is to support delivery of the master plan for the enterprise zone. Now, you might think that this is okay, but with the current not fit for purpose master plan, we shouldn't support any old enterprise zone master plan. The master plan needs bringing up to date with the need for the site to decarbonise and set a net zero target. Wyre's climate strategy, the enterprise zone master plan and this economic strategy should be in step with one another. At present, they are in conflict. Part of the conflict is MPL's quest for waste to energy plants. Wyre Council should have a climate strategy for the EZ that includes a requirement for the site to move to a net zero position. These incinerator plants will do exactly the opposite of what is actually required. They are bad for the planet and bad for the people of Wyre. Wyre must avoid waste tourism and prevent the Wyre Peninsula from becoming a waste management cul-de-sac, and ensure that Fleetwood can grow as both a gateway to the Irish Sea and a hub for the local green energy. So at present, that support should be dependent on the production of a suitably revised master plan that actually provides a greener and cleaner vision for the site and the residents of the surrounding area. A second example regarding infrastructure seems okay on the face of it, and that is to identify and explore the feasibility of options for the Fleetwood to Poulton railway line. What is omitted and is seemingly not understood is the need to find and protect a rail route into central Fleetwood. This is not just a nice to have, it is actually essential unless Wyre wishes to limit the economic regeneration of the whole area, and in particular Fleetwood and Thornton. Thank you.
Not backed by Labour.
What?
Thank you, Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It does cause them some difficulties to keep going on about the railway line when one of the first things that the Labour government did was scrap it, but pretend they're still considering individual projects to give their MPs an out. We are committed to some form of railway and infrastructure development across the Fylde coast. I don't personally think that heavy rail seems like it's an option given this government strategy. Boris Johnson didn't do too many things I liked, but one of the things he did do was obviously his review of the beaching review. And so he was going to build it back, and it was one of the schemes that he was going to put back in place to Fleetwood, or as close to it as could be. There does need to be better transport infrastructure in Wyre that isn't reliant on cars. Definitely. I think we all agree on that. I think that what that is, we shouldn't limit ourselves to that, and I think that we should have an ambitious plan, but that the way to go about that is to form that view with our partners, because we will need, for example, Blackpool and Fylde to be behind it. And given that they are likely to be more than partners in the not too distant future, it's very important that we're on the same page on that, because otherwise any plan can die in a few years' time. With regards to his first point, it's interesting that he claims to have invented tourism strategies. I note his comments on the AZ master plan and the incinerators. Now, completely carbon-free waste-to-energy plants do exist. They do exist, and they are being used across mainland Europe and in the Americas. So I accept that that's not necessarily what NPL want, but we have to be realistic about what we do with waste in this country, because we can't tolerate landfill because of what's happening, and we don't want the carbon emissions. And I'm not saying we do want them instead of the landfill, because you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's just one problem instead of another. But we have landfill. It's not going anywhere. There's only going to be more of it. What do we do with it? And that is where the government actually need to show some leadership on this, and Miliband needs to actually show some leadership on this, and not just keep building bloody windmills and solar farms and things. That's the easy option. They need to get decent carbon-free waste-to-energy power plants in this country, because they do exist and they could be delivered on, including on Hill House. And if it was carbon-free, I would support it. If it's not carbon-free, I don't.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm highly supportive of the economic development and visitor economy strategy. I think it's good. I do agree that it's a living document that hopefully will be added to as we go along. I did note that under 4.7 Hill House Technology Enterprise Zone, you've made reference to support lobbying to increase the capacity of the grid power station at Stanner and supply to the government hydrogen production scheme. I noted that this item was actually in the HTES Economic Development Board. my apologies if I've got the wrong meeting, where they also talked about that prior to this strategy. What I'm confused about, and I'm hoping you can clarify for me, is that if the council is committed to lobbying the government for upgrading Stanner, why, when the new Morvanning offshore wind project was announced, has Wyre Council supported its connection at Penwitham rather than Stanner? And just to add to that, Fylde, who are currently dealing with another issue in regards connection at Penwitham, actually abstained from responding. So that would have been an option for Wyre Borough Council that wouldn't have been counterintuitive to our plan to actually upgrade Stanner. Thank you.
The two separate things. So effectively, the EZ to thrive needs better energy, better access to energy. That energy would then serve the businesses on the EZ. It also needs better transport links. It needs all sorts of stuff. Supporting the upgrade of Stanner does not mean that we also would then support the moving the scheme from Fylde to Stanner's countryside. Yeah, but I'm not aware of the consultation response that you are referring to be perfectly honest. It's not one that came under my remit, but all I would say is...
Morvanning, November 2024.
Fine. Not mine. I did not write it. However, upgrading the Stanner power supply is important for the EZ. Anything beyond that, separate.
Thank you. Councillor Rushworth.
Vincent, I actually need you to help me understand something, because I don't know, there were an awful lot of words in that agenda today. There was an awful lot of reading. With regards to the Hill House Technology Enterprise Zone, page 126, there is a sentence, and I understand every word in that sentence, but I do not understand what the sentence is trying to tell me, and I do not wish to just jump to conclusions. So the sentence says, we want to encourage investment into low carbon energy generation, storage and related infrastructure to create a green energy hub. So what are we talking about when we're talking about low carbon energy generation and storage of this thing? What is this thing?
So we are, just to be really clear, we are not talking about gas storage as you and I would know it. What we are talking about is obviously if green energy is generated, for example, it sometimes needs to be stored for emergency supplies, or gas to serve things would need to be stored. We're not talking about huge wells, we're just talking to supply large areas, or gas storage as it was known. We're talking about storage facilities on the EZ to serve the EZ.
Which gas?
Yeah, I can't answer that question, so I won't speculate. I'll get more of a... Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
So just 2 points. So you're saying that storage is on the site and it isn't underground storage of any kind?
It could be underground on the site, but we're not talking about the same thing as we were talking about years ago with gas storage under Preesall in the area.
So no underground hydrogen storage in Preesall, that's what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. We don't support it because we are not supporting that, nor would we ever support it. Well, it's not, that wouldn't be our decision as the last one wasn't.
No, I understand that, but thank you, that's very good. And my other point was on town centre partnerships. I just want to make the point that a lot of villages are quite unsettled at the moment. There's more houses being built. They feel like they're becoming more and more like towns. Obviously, the town centre partnerships are from a few years ago and they focus on the bigger centres, but in the villages, shops are struggling as well, and people are upset about the types of shops that go in, which might seem like a small point, but for a lot of people it is a big issue. And transport links as well. I know we're not a transport authority, but in our area we've not had the ferry running for a long time. So as it is a living document, I just would like to point out that we shouldn't forget our village centres.
Yeah, so any village or any community that feels that would benefit them is free to form one. So they are things that are formed effectively. While we have encouraged them in the towns because they help us deliver on our goals, should any village or small town who's not got one want to form one, go for it.
Thank you. Councillor Higginson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just one observation from what Councillor Vincent was saying about this Boris Johnson character. I didn't have much confidence in him delivering the rail link when Cat Smith MP asked him in the House of Commons, I always seem to recall, about this rail link to Poulton-le-Fylde, and he gave his usual response, and in concluding he said that he hoped that the rail link to Bolton would be successful. So I never had much confidence then, but he did actually say that. But the point I would like to make is also about town centres, and basically what about Thornton? It seems to be left behind. We're having constant housing development. There are very few amenities, you know, big housing estates, and there isn't even a post box. You know, it's disappointing that if you look in the document on town centres, it does mention Cleveley's, it does mention Fleetwood, it mentions Garstang and Poulton, but it doesn't mention Thornton. And it's almost like, well, when is a town not a town when there's plenty of housing development but no facilities? I just wondered if you'd like to offer a comment on that. Thank you.
Yeah, Thornton...
And about Boris Johnson as well.
I can't believe that Boris Johnson misspoke. I refuse to believe that. With regards to Thornton, I suppose it's the same answer, Councillor Higginson. You know, we formed certain ones in the sort of major town centres, if you would, so Fleetwood, Cleveley's, Poulton and Garstang, and they have been so successful, I like to think so anyway, and I think the residents agree, and certainly those that are members of them agree, that I would like to see it expanded, and I would like to see it expanded into Thornton. We need business engagement, and if the businesses want to engage with us and form one of those town centre partnerships for Thornton, it certainly seems to me like it's probably got the biggest population that's not got one. So, by all means.
Thank you. I have got time for Councillor Fail if you wish to come back.
Yeah, it's just to clarify on the hydrogen potentially being produced at Hill House. I know it's a living document, but I think it's important that we actually define what sort of hydrogen we're talking about. Is it blue hydrogen, is it green hydrogen, or some other form of hydrogen? Because that affects our ability of this authority and the Hill House Enterprise Zone to get to a net zero. So what we're actually producing is really crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent.
Obviously, it does refer to the UK government hydrogen production scheme, which I would imagine gives some sort of clue on what type of hydrogen it is. I'm looking at you, Mark, don't look around. But it's a fair point. We'll get you an answer on it because it seems like a reasonable thing to look into. I just don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. I think I know what the answer might be, but as the reposer, is there anything else you'd like to add? I thought so. So that now concludes the debate. Would members please vote now on the recommendation? All those in favour, please show. The recommendations are approved. Next item is item 10, Councillor Development Strategy Annual Refresh. Councillor Marinell this time. Would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I introduce the report, I'd just like to point 4.5 and 5.6 on the report. These sort of relate to each other. I'm really happy to report that the required 75% of surveys have now been returned, which I'm really pleased about, and so therefore achieving the target that helps us towards the award. So thank you for that. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Oh, a seconder for that. Thank you. Are there any questions, comments or amendments? Thank you. Would members now please vote on the recommendation? All those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? The recommendations are approved. The next item is item 11, calendar of the meetings for 26-27. Councillor Vincent, would you please introduce the report and propose a recommendation? The seconder for that proposal. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No? Okay, would members please now vote on the recommendation? All those in favour please show. The recommendation is approved. The next item is item 12. Constitution amendments, the Audits and Standards Committee terms of reference. Councillor Vincent, would you please introduce the report and propose a recommendation? Is there a seconder for the proposal? Thank you. Are there any questions, comments or amendments? Would members now please vote on the recommendation? All those in favour please show. Thank you, that's unanimous. The recommendation is approved. The next item is item 12, Periodic Report, Audit and Standards Committee. Councillor Ibbotson, would you please introduce your report?
The report is before members. Happy to take any questions.
So, are there any questions, comments or for Councillor Ibbotson? No? Thank you. The report is noted. The next item, item 13, Periodic Report, Councillor Development Group. Councillor Robinson, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I know it's been a long evening, but my report is before members. But I would like to take this opportunity and thank all the members of the Council Development Group and the Democratic team, especially Jack Tickle, for the valued support during the 24-25 municipal year. Happy to take any questions, but all the information is in the report.
Are there any comments or questions for Councillor Robinson? No, the report is noted. The next item is item 14, Mayor Nominations 25-26. As stated on the agenda in January, the Council approved the motion that Councillor Cackerell would be Mayor-elect for 25-26. Unfortunately, owing to personal circumstances, she is unable to assume the position this year. Therefore, the Council must vote again to confirm a replacement. As listed in the agenda, the Chief Executive has revised 2 nominations before the deadline as set by Democratic Services via email. You will be aware on 12th of September 2024 the Council agreed a revised selection process for the Mayor. Therefore, members are asked to consider and vote on the appointment of the Mayor at a meeting before the annual meeting. Before we move on with this item, I have just a few procedural matters to address. I propose that we temporarily suspend Procedure Rule 16 to limit the debate to discuss why each candidate is suitable for the position rather than not suitable. It will remain that members will have a maximum of 5 minutes per speech. Please may I call for a seconder for this proposal? All those for? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. For ease, I ask that we discuss each nominee separately, then we take votes for each of the nominees. There must be a majority of votes for one nominee. In order of the agenda, please can I ask for a proposer for Councillor Nichols as the Mayor-elect for 25-26. Is there a seconder for the proposal? Are there any words of support for Councillor Nichols? Thank you, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose Councillor Nichols as Mayor elect for 25-26. Councillor Nichols has had a successful year as Deputy Mayor, and in particular has enjoyed meeting and speaking to members of various organisations throughout Wyre. He would like to looking forward to be able to continue with this community engagement as our Mayor. He's got good experience of community engagement. As a keen Rotarian, he was involved in arranging community bonfires on Cottam Hall in Poulton. He was fundraising as a friend of Jean Stansfield Park in Poulton and has organised large music festivals there. As a member of Poulton Gala Committee, he was chair of the committee for some time and he still arranges the music events there. So I'm sure he will make an excellent mayor for Wyre. So I'm very pleased to nominate him as our proposed mayor for the ensuing year.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to echo what Councillor Berry has said, Steve's been an excellent deputy mayor. I'm aware that Steve loves his music, so provided he doesn't start singing as often as Councillor Lees did, I'm sure he'll be a great mayor.
Thank you very much. Please can I now ask for a proposer for Councillor Brian Stevenson? Thank you, Councillor Fayle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it's like Groundhog Day, this. We saw the Conservative group whipping play last time, and I'm not expecting that will change this time. The problem with this new process is that its success is dependent on leaving politics at the door. The reality is that this never happens, and with regard to this vote, it leaves the Conservative group alone with having a veto. Nobody else, just them. Anyway, I won't waste anybody else's time with continuing this speech. Suffice to say, there is no Labour whip, and I propose the nomination of Councillor Brian Stevenson as the next Mayor of Wyre. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder for that proposal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not many people know much about Brian, so I better tell you. He's a bit of a newcomer, isn't he? I don't think so. What can we say about Brian? Well, it's all been said. It literally has all been said because it is a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? So I won't tell you about his love of Shakespeare. I won't tell you about my favourite playwrights, Alan Bleasdale. I won't tell you about that. I won't tell you about Mike Lee. And I won't tell you about my favourite authors like George Orwell, because it's all been said, so I won't bother. And I won't tell you about the ragged-trousered philanthropist by my favourite author, Robert Tressel, because it's already been said, so I won't say that. So I would just formally second Councillor Stevenson for the municipal year, to be mayor for the municipal year for the Borough of Wyre of 2025-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, did you want to say something?
I can assure you there's no Conservative whip that.
We'll now move on to the vote. As mentioned, there must be a majority vote for one nominee. All those in favour of Councillor Nichols, please show. Would all those in favour of Councillor Brian Stevenson please show? Thank you. I can confirm that the majority of votes have been for Councillor Nichols, 24 to Stevenson, 9. Therefore, Councillor Nichols, you have been agreed as the Mayor-elect for 25-26 to be confirmed at the annual meeting in May. I therefore close this meeting and thank you for your attendance.